We had two questions earlier on the business sector. We had a question from France about anticipation and also a question from Indonesia about who is taking the lead. Were you, Hansi, responding to the government rules, or were you trying to push the government along? Where did it come from?
Well, all I can say is really it should start from you, the top officials or the CEOs of the company. You started, and I guess the company will just follow. Quite frankly, I'm not really on a blaming game or accusing game with the government. Normally, the government requirements are just the minimum. You have the resources, especially developing countries like us. I have to accept the government have limited resources, and since we have the extra resources, I took advantage to study further and to invest further. So I guess, as I would always say, no government would accuse you if you decide to do something more than they require.
But have they moved along since you started?
Yes, actually, I've been setting along as a good example that when we start doing these things, the government do come and support and really help us promote even further.
Thank you.
In our interconnected world, there is no such thing as far away. Disaster in one place sends economic shockwaves around the globe, and those can cost more than the original catastrophe.
A disaster impact has no borders anyway. The risk is to all of us and all our assets. It's not a problem for somebody else, it's a problem for you and me today.
Indirect losses can cripple national economies, kill small businesses, shut down factories, and take away jobs. The key can be as small as a microchip. The 2011 quake and tsunami in Japan hit the microchip maker Renesas for a $615 million loss. And that was only the beginning. All Japanese car manufacturers felt the pain. One of them, Toyota, lost production of 150,000 vehicles in the United States alone. Factories had to shut down or cut back in the US, Britain, India, and China. The cost to Toyota, more than $1 billion. UNISDR's new global assessment report says the private sector needs to start protecting itself and is crucial in making the world's economy more resilient. Governments can't do it alone.
Private sector is, in any country in the world today, represents 75 to 90% of all investments. You actually need a self-interested business that also says, if our business is going to be resilient, if we want to protect our investments, we also need to think about how to manage risk from natural hazards.
UNISDR is forging partnerships with businesses to manage risks instead of managing disasters. The Global Assessment on Disaster Risk Reduction includes a study by PricewaterhouseCoopers that indicates business leaders are slowly starting to take disaster planning seriously.
I don't think they look at it as a cost anymore. So they actually see it as something fundamental to their business.
And none too soon, for the challenge is growing.
We know from the climate change agenda that our disasters are coming with higher frequency, greater volatility, greater depth.
There is no doubt that that is a lethal and very deadly cocktail of risk and exposure.
More agile than government, the private sector can move quickly to help assess risk, promote systems and technology, set standards for resilience. In New Zealand, the electricity networker Orion invested $6 million in strengthening facilities. That was before the earthquakes of 2010 and 2011. Thanks to avoided losses, it saved 10 times what it had spent on reducing risk. Investing in disaster risk reduction can ensure your business survives, safeguard your long-term investment, and protect your employees, families, and communities.
Give us an update on the Orion situation.
It builds confidence in your company. Disaster risk reduction is also a growing business sector in itself, opening up new opportunities for several companies.
Working towards resilience is simply good business. It's a business survival kit in an increasingly unpredictable world.
Not just we got on Twitter is why do some do it in terms of disaster risk reduction, why don't others do it? Hansi, you showed us in your presentation that you do, but maybe some people in the audience would say, well, fine for Hansi, he's wealthy, he's in a family group, he's got the resources. What do you say to the smaller companies in the Philippines who don't have that kind of resource to be able to do that extensive planning?
Well, as I would always say, I don't let problems or issues block me from achieving my goals. And I know there are lots of issues before on why I'm doing this and not doing that, but I always set my goals and lead by examples. That's all I can say right now. But to the smaller groups, as I would, we can reach out to them. What we've been doing with all our tenants, we've been reaching out to them. We've been guiding them in terms of all the researches that we've done. These are all really voluntary, and we're happy to do even further.
Okay. Now, of course, traditionally, and I know there's another.
My name is David Cadman. I'm the president of ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, and 2/3 of humanity lives on the coast, and we've just heard that most cities that live on the coast are planning for a 1 or 2 meter rise of sea level. And in fact, if the poles melt, and they are, if Greenland melts, and it is, the consequence of that is going to be more profound as we move through 2 degrees centigrade to 6 degrees centigrade in climate change. And so my question is, while people in the private sector are working locally, why are they not working much more diligently internationally to get a climate change agreement in place that will prevent the kinds of climate change that are going to be the major risks in our future?
That's an absolutely important point, and I think it bears mentioning that even though we are now focusing on UNISDR, we're also connected to what's happening or not happening on climate change, also what's happening in GATT. It's all linked. Thank you very much, David. And I see from your seat preferences, you also like seating on the coastal plain as well. We've had some really good questions. I want to bring it back. Dawn had a very specific question. How do you make it work? How do you get the private sector involved? How do you, well, actually the private sector, Hansi, you ensured you got your shopping mall ready, but would you actually get the shopping mall next to you? Would you get the whole neighborhood ready? And it's a very, very good point, because some have more resources than others. And then about how do you get the public sector? Linda, do you want to answer that one? Hans, do you want to answer?
I'm sorry, this is not working.
She was saying, from Dawn, she said, well, for example, you're in a neighborhood, so you get your shopping mall ready, but the guy next to you doesn't have the same resources with the 5 and 10 cent shop. Would you actually help him to become disaster resilient as well?
Well, and it's also, would you help with energy resiliency? Yeah. Would you pay in to help a system that would help the entire area?
Okay. I'm always guided by the statement that if it's good for the city, good for the public, it's also good for the business. And if it's good for the business, everybody and all benefits from it. So with that alone, well, it's true. To be more specific, I also try to take care of our neighbors. You see, I also believe in business of the critical mass. I don't believe to be monopoly in the business. I would like to have everybody together. So I normally, that's a standard procedure already in our company to extend assistance to our neighbors. The other hand is, yes, we've been working very closely with the government. We've been doing a lot of other investments in infrastructures, especially that is related to floodings and things like that. Not yet in power, because I guess the resilience in the private sectors in the Philippines, because of so frequent power, how do you call this, power outages, almost every business have their own generators already. But to other infrastructures, we do really a lot of sharing with the government.
And we heard from both Colombia.
SM Prime Holdings has been investing in business resilience for more than 15 years. I hope today my experience has proven that investing in resilience just makes good business sense. And I really hope I'm able to influence some of you CEOs of private company, if not all, to really start taking disaster resilience investments seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank all of you.